Hi friends, welcome to Abstract Curiosity. My name is Rebeka. I'm a 1-3 mental projector, Virgo Sun, Capricorn Moon, and Rising.
Hi, I'm Michelle, and I am a 4-1 emotional generator. I am a what am I? I am a Scorpio Sun, Aquarius Moon, and a Cancer Rising. I'm never as quick at that as you are. I have to pause for a minute. What am I? Who am I?
I love it.
Snap.
Well, and if you're new to us, we just like to introduce ourselves that way so that you know the filter through which we are speaking and sharing our worldview. So you can relate to us or not.
That's right. And if you'd like to see the charts and you're listening to us on a podcast, you can find us on YouTube at Abstract Curiosity, just in case the visuals are important for you.
Yes, because today we are going to dig into Michelle's chart, and I'm really excited about this. So thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your energy. So if anybody's ever curious about what makes up Michelle, well, here we go. Here is her amazing chart. Look at this. And so it's fun. It's fun too because me being a mental projector, I have 2 defined and 7 undefined. And then Michelle's opposite. She has 7 defined and 2 undefined. So together we have quite a different life experience. And I know it's fun for us, like being partners in this. And we kind of laugh sometimes when we can see each other's design, which is what I love.
Yes, you can definitely help me along on it. And definitely with the Chiron return, that was definitely beneficial. Yeah.
Okay, so we decided to dig into our charts. Today we're doing Michelle. Next time we'll dig into mine because we can give like a little preview of what it would be like to work with us. Like if you come, you want to do a Chiron's Medicine session with us, what does that even mean? Well, we're going to kind of dig into some stuff here so we can play with our own energies. You get a taste of it. And then it's also fun because Michelle has actually completed her Chiron return. So we get to look back really at how Chiron showed up in all these different phases of life and how it hit during the return. And it's just really exciting.
Mm-hmm. This is going to be awesome. Thanks for helping me unpack it.
Yes. Well, thank you for helping me unpack mine. Gosh, it's been such a healing journey for us already. So that's how we know that it's going to be so potent for so many people.
True.
So as we look at Chiron, y'all can see on the chart here, if you look down, there's a gray square that's towards the bottom on both sides. Right. If we go from the bottom, we've got Pluto, and then we have Neptune above that, and then Uranus above that, and then they stick Chiron in there because that's where it is in the sky. It's between Saturn and Uranus.
Yeah. Yep.
So this is a professional chart that we look up for ours. This is similar to what yours would look like. So we look at the gate, where it is on the chart, and where it is astrologically, like what house it's in, what sign it's in, all those things. So Michelle is an Aries Chiron. Both of hers are in Aries, which feels like very fiery energy. So first, let's just start there, like a Chiron in Aries. Yeah. Let's unpack that a bit. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so Chiron in Aries really has a lot to do with like almost like self-preservation is one way I would do it. And it's this ability to kind of feel like maybe you kind of lead with almost, let me do what other people expect of me, not what I expect of myself, because it's easier in that way. Because remember, when we're talking about Chiron, because like when people start to listen to this stuff, like, well, that's not what it's like. This is the voice of Chiron. This isn't necessarily the voice of Aries. Aries is a very fiery, potent, confident type of energy. But when the wound shows up there, it has a lot to do that you feel like your voice is kind of weakened and it doesn't really count. And that you're kind of working off the wishes of what other people have told you could do or be. And which really lines up because it's also in my ninth house, which happens to be, the house of learning and spirituality and like feeling connected to something that was bigger than what I am. And a lot of the times when not only is it in Aries, but it's in the ninth house for me, it showed up as, can I trust that I've got this connection with my higher soul self? It's something that I was teaching for years and years, but it was like, but what's my voice in it? And so showing up in the first house might be that it's about your identity and who you are in the world. That's kind of where this showing up in Aries can kind of be a little bitey. It's like somehow you feel like your own inner power is diminished and it isn't as worthy. And it's interesting because when you study Chiron, spends the most time in Aries. So that's why there is such a flooding. Like when we do a lot of readings, so many people is in Aries, and like other ones are shorter. I think Pisces is a lot shorter that Chiron shows up in. So I just want to throw that out there too. So yeah, so it's kind of like understanding more about yourself and allowing yourself not to feel powerlessness in your body. And I've had so many things to work through within my own physicality, which Aries is about physicality. It's got that fiery energy it wants to be. But in some ways, for me, Chiron showed up in this particular part would be that my wound started off as a child of not really learning to love my body. I came in with bronchial pneumonia. I was in my mom's belly, and her fluid had broken for a month, and she kept going to the doctor, and he said, you're fine. And then finally she went in and she was ill. So I came out and I was infected everywhere. Like I had to be put in an incubator for two weeks. My mom almost passed away. Wow. And that's interesting. That happens a lot for people who have, if your AC is close to your Chiron, that can happen for a lot of people. So I kind of started off with like, what is this body of mine? And it's very much wounded. And here I appear not feeling strong in this new physicality because I believe in past lives and that my Chiron probably stemmed from a former life that I didn't feel confident in my body. And it's the thing in my 50s that I'm finally learning to embrace, to love my body. So that's just one little part of it.
Right. So this is why I love this work. That's literally one part. This is like the biggest part.
One layer. Yep.
We haven't even gotten detailed yet.
No.
Okay, so that really is fascinating, though, because if we think of Chiron as this essential wound that you come in with, this story that you're here to unlearn, and you literally came in with that. With body issues. Weak. And it's in body Aries. Issues. Wow.
1,000%. And then as I was growing up, I kept having the body issues that I had to be something that somebody else wanted me to be, which was to be very petite and to have this outer appearance that met the standards of people in my family. And when I didn't meet that, I got in trouble for it. And so that wound has been, that's part of that Chiron wound that has been just always brewing and has kept me from moving forward. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, adding on to that, then your soul was like, how about we incarnate in the 70s where everybody is supposed to be skinny for the next 40 years? That sounds fun. Because I think about like the time, there was Twiggy, I think she was 60s, but let's just think about the world you came in with, right? Like it was the 60s were very like, the people in the big world were very skinny. Audrey Hepburn, Twiggy, like all of that. And then I know I was around the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, and you look at stuff and it's like, if you were bigger than a size 2, people were just grossed out. It's like, that's not realistic. So it's just interesting too to think about how you're in this time where we were really putting a lot of pressure on women to be one specific way.
Yes. Yeah. And that pressure was felt throughout the whole family. Yeah. And again, I don't have any blame or resentment. That's what I came in. I obviously picked a family who would kind of really reinforce that for me so that I would work through the wound, right? I think that's the part that's different when I look at it from that perspective. All of a sudden, I have the power after I become an adult. But as a child, you don't have the power. And so I had to deal with it and, do what I needed to do in order to feel somewhat empowered.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so let's unpack this just a little bit more. We'll start with, actually, let's start with the conscious side, I feel like.
Okay.
And then go a little deeper into the subconscious. Does that feel good? So on the conscious side, you have that gate 25, which is coming off of the identity center, the big diamond. It won't show my little cursor thing.
Oh, it does.
Does it show anything?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sweet.
Yep. Perfect.
So gate 25 there, the gate of innocence, the gate of universal love. And it's in this identity center too. And it's a love gate. So there's a lot of beauty there. But again, this is your Chiron. And we think about the spiritual aspects. We think about how it's in the identity center. And again, this feels very body related as well. It's about love. And so tell me your thoughts on this one.
So gate 25 also is quite linked up to, you're right, like that conscious love of everything and everyone. And it's also a very spiritually connected gate. And it comes out of the ninth house. And the ninth house is that wounding of belief systems and the wound of understanding that what I might have been raised with, it might have been suppressed. Like to be able to love myself, my love and direction center, to be able to really fully believe in that I am the greater part of the whole, meaning a spiritual existence. Now, this is my journey, so I'm not saying anything's good, bad, or indifferent, but my journey has been I started off in religion and ended up going into a more spiritual direction, which I feel more connected to God. I feel more connected to the angels and to other things, but I was kind of denied that. And so when I saw it show up in 25, I was kind of laughing because it's the area that I have been teaching now since 2006 about this stuff. And it was the thing that I was the most scared to show up and identify with because of how I might be perceived, kind of that Aries energy of like, will people love me? And can I really figure out what I do believe? Is it safe for me to stand in my truth for all of that? And some of that also included this part of myself, which was channeling. And I think channeling and past lives were the two things that during my whole journey of like opening up and looking at things from a broader perspective, that space of love, were the two that I probably fought the most in myself. And when I finally let go of that and realized that it's safe for me to be in connection with something that's bigger than me, but also is a part of me, right? That's been my spiritual journey. I'm not less than, but I certainly was taught that I was less than because my physicality said if I'm not a perfect size 2 or an 8, for God's sakes, I just wanted to be a size 8, right? I wasn't even shooting for 2s. But if I could be that for some reason, then I was worthy of this connection of love and this connection of connecting up to a higher source and truly believing it, if that makes sense. Does that make sense how I'm explaining it?
Yes, yes. So I just want to unpack gate 5 or gate 25 itself for just a second so we can tell the story of gate 25. Officially, it's called the Spirit of the Self. And I love Michelle has her own names for everything. Like she said, she's a very talented channeler. So she calls it childlike innocence, which I feel like really encapsulates the energy of this. And so one indicator, the big indicator of Chiron in this gate is this constriction of love. You're cutting yourself off from love. You don't believe that you deserve it. You're distracting yourself from it. You avoid love. You avoid being loved because you think you either kind of repress it. You're like, I'm just not worthy of it, so I'm just going to hide away from it. Or you just kind of turn cold and you push everybody away. So this can be a big indicator, part of the journey. And it sounds like that was really showing up for you.
Can I just tell you, I just had another aha. That's what I love about this work. It just never ends. So thank you for saying that in that way. Ooh. So just during my Chiron return, I began to understand that I'm a 4/1, and so sometimes when I go into social settings, I'm like, a lot of times don't go to places unless I know people. So when I go to social settings, sometimes I feel what I call love bombed, where quite a few people want to come and hug me and be with me, and I adore it, and I love that whole experience. But it felt so awkward, and I only became conscious of it during my return, was in the minute that I felt what I call love bomb, I revert to eating because I don't know what to do with that energy. And that's that Chiron, that hum of learning to adjust myself into it's okay to have that feeling that I'm worthy of that feeling. So I just please know that just because I've gone through my Chiron return doesn't mean that it goes away. It's more of it unfolds like a lotus flower, right? Like, and that's just hitting me. And it's just been recently that, like, if I go to a family function or anywhere, right, and I know a lot of people, and I'm so excited to be with them, and I want to hang out with all of them, that I all of a sudden can just let the feelings just settle in, and I don't have to reject it and numb myself out with food. So, that was a new one for me. Thanks, Rebeka.
That's awesome. That's so beautiful. Yes, I know, because you just said that the other day. You just had an event just a couple days ago, and you allowed yourself to feel it. And I think you said it was the first time it wasn't overwhelming.
Yeah, I walked in because my husband knows the terminology now, and I'll say it to him. And I said, "Oh, I loved it." And the love bombing, please know it's also that I get to love bomb people. Like it's a mutual thing, and that. Yeah, it was the first time I came home and I felt settled in it. I didn't need to do anything with it. I literally just sat and absorbed it because it's a two-way street. Now I see it as a two-way street, like, and that I am worthy of it. But it's taken me 53 years to, like, notice that from a different viewpoint of it's helping me to heal.
That's so cool. And it's such a perfect example of the story of this gate, because the growth aspect is embracing acceptance. It is embracing that love. It is owning that you are a divine spark of love. That's what it is. 25 connects us all to universal love. And by truly loving and accepting yourself as you are, you start to dispel that inner darkness and you get to shine that light of love. And of course, people want to love bomb you. Like, you are so fun. You have this amazing energy, that 4 line on the conscious, your generator, like, yes. So it's just so fascinating, because this is the other thing, right? Where it's like, on the outside, we're like, why would that bother you? Like, that's weird. We love you. Why do you not see it? But this is Chiron, right?
This is Chiron. Yeah.
Yes.
It's that subtle thing that just kind of runs through, and it has more than one. I think what we're discovering is that the layers and the amount of stories, depending upon where you are in your life, right? Like, I think its voice shows up differently. But had I known this at a younger age, right? Had I had the desire, even like say in your 50s, I think in your 20s maybe not, but maybe in your 30s or 40s, had I wanted to know this, how much, and there's nothing wrong with what I did, but how much different I could have experienced a lot of things in my life had I realized, oh, that's my Chiron, like that's what's pulsating, that it's not safe for me to go in there. It's
yes.
not, and here's the other level of that then. Because of what I do and what I believe and the family that I grew up with, showing up as me, I think that's the other layer of this too, right? Me learning that it's okay to show up as me, and that people can still love me even if our viewpoints don't align, that they know that whatever I'm putting my energy into, it's just because I want to be of service. Like, truly, that's, I'm not trying to impose my beliefs in anything that I do. And I've worked with people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and I think that's the first thing I always say to people. But it's funny, a lot of the times I think in the past when I was younger, I would reject it because I was nervous as I was discovering who I really was. that maybe there was going to be rejection again.
Well, and it's interesting because that segues perfectly to your subconscious Chiron, the gate of opinions, where you're afraid of the opinions. You're letting other people's opinions really decide you, you know? And so let's unpack that one just a little bit. The gate of opinions here, gate 17, it is in the ajna up here. So again, with this, the shadow aspect is actually opinion, because like everybody has an opinion, right? So an indicator here is that you're too focused on your opinions or you're too focused on other people's, and you're just basically ignoring your own intuition. And that's basically what you just described.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like how you said that. It's other people's and your own, and that there's kind of this blending, right? I'm assuming that's kind of what you're saying. Like 17 in its highest form, like the Chiron of it would say, I have to take, and I think that's what I was living in. That's part of that 9th house and that 6th house in astrology that shows up for me in Chiron would be health, which would have been my physical body, and not loving it, right? Not knowing how to love it unless it was skinny. And it didn't matter how you got there, by the way. Because back in the 70s, it didn't matter. Like, you drank tab and celery, and you should be happy. You should just move on.
Just
deal
deal
with it. I'm being dramatic. But just deal with it, right? Because that's how it was presented to me, right?
Yes.
And being put on a diet by, wow, I'm really sharing stuff. Being put on a diet in 2nd grade because I was 10 pounds overweight, and then was rewarded by going out with my sister's boyfriends or my dad to get ice cream. I mean, you want to talk about a cluster of like, so that Chiron of like not knowing that my opinions mattered, like to say, this doesn't make sense to me. Why am I torturing myself with all of this? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And even with the channeling, like you kept it hidden because of other people's opinions. You let that weigh you down and keep you quiet. Yeah.
1000%. And it still churns up in me.
It does.
It's not,
it does.
It's not comfortable yet for me. To even say
and that's
that out
part
loud,
of the journey.
Right? Yeah.
I know. That's like we've talked about when we're working together, and I know there's been times where I'm like, hello, gate of opinions in Chiron, and you're like, oh dang it, I did it again. Or I'll actively do mine and you call me out, and it makes it fun now.
It does.
But the pathway, the story for this gate 17 is it's moving into a foresight or farsightedness, which I think is a funny term for it. But really, the purpose of this gate 17 is to be fairly logical. Like, it's meant to have an opinion about something so that the collective can move forward in a more aligned, powerful way, in a more quote unquote right way. I say it in quotes because when it's part of the collective circuitry, and when we're talking about the collective, it's just a wide range. And so that's really what it's intended for. You have the opinion based on logic, based on facts. You help the collective move forward in this powerful way. And so when you are channeling, when you're connected to yourself, when you are in your zone, you are able to allow people to move forward in this really powerful way, in a way that they wouldn't have been able to do on their own. And so it really is important that you are sharing your opinions. It's just not letting it get in the way. I mean, does that make sense? But that instead of letting everything keep you down, you're sharing it in a more aligned way.
Yeah. And I think that, again, when we talk about houses, that's kind of what, 9th and 6th house are talking about. Like, especially within the 9th house, it's like knowing that what is coming through is important, and it can be shared, and it's safe to share it. But I also think it's interesting because all of that has to happen through my physical body, and being out of tune with my body for, most of my adulthood thus far until recently. And I'm still on that journey. But I'm so much healthier now in understanding that I can get stuck in my head. I have a defined head and defined ajna, as everyone sees. And That's my safe place. And I also have a triple split. So it's very safe for me to just suspend here and forget about everything else lower than me. So having a triple split makes it very difficult to connect the dots. And I think that's part of like the Chiron also for me being in Aries is like really learning that when I'm feeling or sensing something, there's a reason for it and I don't need to ignore it because that's what I was taught to do as a child. Just totally ignore it. And so Rebeka has been amazing in helping me feel comfortable with all of this, like being comfortable with talking about it and calling it out when she sees Chiron coming up. Because like we say, like it's coming in a lot of different avenues. It's not the nice, clean little package that a lot of people think, right? When it comes to, and again, depending upon if you've been through your Saturn return, your Uranus opposition, and then those are the orders that it comes in with your age. And I think all of this just appears differently. And now, of course, I'm looking at it in hindsight, although still dealing with it. It doesn't go away. But I do say that as I have gone through my Chiron turn, I do feel like what I am playing in now is the bitiness and the hurt when the uncomfortableness of Chiron shows up, because it shows up usually in my stomach, like when I'm being asked to do something that's a little out of the ordinary, that I'm here to share my opinion on something, and I feel like I don't have a connection sometimes, to be honest. Like I feel like that, and that's part of that ninth house thing, like that connection with myself and the lovely light that's coming through. Sometimes I still feel disconnected, so it takes me a minute to give myself permission just to be quiet and just to be settled and safe in it. So the more I practice it, the easier, the less that pressure feels, although my ego will want to come in and still push away what I know I need to work through. And what has that done? And Rebeka showed this to me. Every time I do share those things with just pure bliss and love in my heart, I do get a lot of good feedback from people saying that helped, or I needed that today, or whatever it might be, which then confirms that it was safe for me, because it feels uncomfortable, right, to walk through it. It's safe for me to do that because there is a collective purpose, because mine happens to be in a collective and in an individual. 25, is that individual? Tribal
Yes.
Going into individual, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I've kind of got a combo pack going on there. Like I've got an internal thing going on from my tribe into my internal, but also a collective. So it's kind of interesting to look at it from that point of view too.
It is. There's so many fun layers. And so for me, that feels like when you are able to embody yourself and to connect to universal love, then you're sharing your opinions from this beautiful place, and it hits those in the collective that it's meant to hit. And then also, since you're a 4-1, like you have a fractal that's waiting for you to say these things. So it's important for you to say these things. And so it's good that you are starting to see the feedback. And I think sometimes, because I know this happens for me too, sometimes you need someone else to point it out. It's like, hey, did you notice that person said this was good? Because you probably didn't. You're probably freaking out at some level.
1000%. Always.
I've totally done that too. It's like, I don't hear the compliments. So it's just an interesting thing. So, okay. So when we're thinking about this Chiron story, it really is about everything that we just said. You got to really embody yourself. And for you specifically, the Aries, the power, like this is about self-empowerment in the Aries really, and connected to body. And then you have that 25, which is even more about the body because it's about love. And then you're moving into sharing your opinions. And we have it in the 9th house, which is about teaching and higher education and really, again, sharing your message. And the 6th, which is about daily routines. So when we're putting all this together, you can see how it might get in the way. Like if it's in the 6th house and you're freaking out about daily routines, it's like, wait, is my Chiron popping up here? Am I freaking out about something? You can start to have little clues for yourself. And instead of being so self-critical, you can move into that forgiveness and into that laughter and like, oh, I see you, Chiron. You silly little goose.
You silly little goose. Oh, that's so freaking true. And a little bit that we haven't even talked about is actually the gene keys aspect of it all too, which really helps us sometimes to see the voice of it, right?
Yeah, well, and that's what we were talking about with the story of it, with the indicator and
Yeah.
the ultimate expression. So that is another layer that we really get into to to connect to the story aspect of it.
Yeah.
So so do you feel like there was a shift post Chiron return? You've kind of alluded to it a bit so far, but do you feel like there was a shift into owning this aspect of yourself?
Yeah, and I think one of the bigger shifts has been how for during the Chiron return and prior to it, I went through a big shift of like, stop listening to quote all the experts when it comes to your physical self. And so I turned that noise off. And anytime somebody wanted to tell me about a supplement or this or that, I would just listen to it politely and let it walk through the other ear. I had to release every rule I had about my physical body.
You're releasing all those opinions so that you can move into love.
Yes. And to a lot of people, I think they probably like, what is she doing? But I was just like, I mean, I went through a whole raw food phase. I went through a vegan phase, a vegetarian phase, you name it. I've tried it. And then when I learned human design and what truly my digestion is, I decided that, and this was before I learned human design. This was, like I said, this was maybe 5 years ago, because it was post 2020, so it was probably like 2018. I just said I have to let go of all the rules, because I was to the point where I didn't know who or what. And then when I learned human design, like a year and a half later, I then realized what my digestion was, which shifted so much for me. And then I just gave myself permission to finally listen to my own opinions, because I'd studied enough. Like, I went back to school to become a holistic health practitioner back in 2000, I don't know, 9 or 10, so I could learn more rules about my body so that I could punish myself more, basically. So it just kind of rippled. Yeah.
That's so one line as well, though. Like, that's what's interesting about it, because there is a drive to learn things with that one line and just wanting to know foundational knowledge. But when you're in the shadow of things and you're stuck in the not self, it can be used as such punishment. I've totally done that too.
Yeah. Yeah. You having the one in yours. Yeah. So it's interesting. So I think the Chiron return has really helped me to own the power that I do have within myself and honor myself in ways, because now when I sense it coming up, I look at it so differently. Like, I look at it as an observer, almost like a third person situation. I pull myself out of the situation when I catch it, because we're not perfect in this, but when I do catch like the channeling part, or not loving myself, or not feeling like I am truly connected and that I have things of value, or love bombing, all those things, whenever they come up now, I'm able to look at it from a way where I know that that wound is here for me to heal, because it would be like my best friend. How I look at it is, we all have these little wounds. My job isn't to rip off my wound and say I'm being bad because I can't heal it. That's what I was taught all my life, right? That's what we all are taught. I've done it to my children too in some aspects. But it is me saying, ouch, that kind of hurts. So how do I soothe myself in a healthy way, which would be to look at what it is that I think is so scary, because it's so scary and it's such an internal thing.
Yes.
Nobody would know any of this, you guys. It doesn't come up in necessarily in your outer world. It's always your inner world. And it's for you personally. That's why it's different than shadow work. Because shadow work sometimes means involving other people, places, and situations. For me, this is such an internal thing. Nobody would know that. And a lot of times nobody knows it. Yes, it's soul work. And so it feels so constraining for me, but to the outside world would be, what is the big deal? What is she talking about? But when you discover what yours is, you'll be like, oh, there it is. I can feel it. Like, yeah. And they're like, but it's not that big. It's like, but it is a big deal for you. And so I think for me, getting into that physicality part and knowing my Chiron is here to teach me and to teach other people that it's safe for you to walk through the wound over and over again, if that makes,
Yes.
did that make sense?
And
Yeah.
it did. That was beautiful. Thank you. And to kind of give a pathway, because when we look at the growth expression, like we're doing 25, right? The indicators that you're cutting yourself off from love, but the growth is that you really embody that you're love. And so when you can look at that aspect and remind yourself, oh, this is what I'm here to really learn and embody. And how beautiful when we look at that from the healthy place with Aries and with the ninth house and with everything that you got going on. Like when you embody the fact and the truth that you are a divine piece of love and you show up in that way, it heals you, it heals other people. It just really shifts the gear. And so it gives you that way. And that's why the medicine is in the wound. It points to the healing.
And I think it's something in our culture that we haven't, like, I know, my parents' generation there before, they were just here. Oh, well, I think it was before. It was my grandparents. But there was such a survival mode, right? That I think in some aspects, as people become, like I consider myself a crone now. If you understand, it's, the child, the mother, and then the crone. There's phases that we go into. And I feel like in our cultures, or cultures that are, what's the word? You're not in a third world country, you're in a first world country. I don't know what you call it. Anyways, the idea of wisdom keepers with our elders, I feel like really got wiped out in the last couple generations.
Yes.
And part of my goal here is for people, when you understand your wound and what you're here, the medicine that it's giving you, it's teaching me something. And what happens when you teach, you expand, you grow, you develop, you can nurture other people as they're going through their wound. How silly it may look to other people, but how profound it is. And to me, this is the element that we've lost, because way back in the day, astrology was the only thing really known. And people really heeded to, a lot of people didn't live through their Chiron return, but we do now. And I think that there's such an elegance in understanding your Chiron, because you're at that point in your life where you can be a role model, not telling people what they're doing right or wrong, a role model, which is when people come to you, you can offer the wisdom of what you've experienced in life. And I think that's part of the elegance of what we're doing here, is that we want this medicine to, like what you said, seep out to not only me, but it seeps out to everybody I'm in connection with. Because when I've worked through a wound, people feel that, right?
Yeah, it changes your frequency, bottom line. So
yes,
it changes how you show up. It changes how people interact with you and see you, everything.
And I think manifesting. I think it also helps us to learn that we can manifest what we desire, because a lot of the wounds of what I was working through was that there was that settling of, I'm not worthy enough, my opinion doesn't matter, my body isn't in the form that it should be for me to accept these things. And so every time I would walk through it and acknowledge it, oh, there it is again, all of a sudden these things have just been kind of falling, literally. Now I have innocence, I get that for my perspective or motivation, right? Innocence in my motivation. Anyways,
Yes.
I am starting to see how what I maybe wanted or desired in a previous time in my life is starting to show up with a little bit more ease and grace. I'm not pushing things as much. And I think that's something that I'm excited to see as we work together with more and more people.
Okay, with those words you were just saying made me figure, like, just put together some stuff, right? Like, you have personal view. You really are here to see things through your own personal lens and to share your personal view. And the innocence motivation, it's that playing. So, like, where do you want to be innocent? Where are you playing? And they're both 6, so there's this role model aspect. And we hit your north node, which is gate 22, the grace. So it really is moving you. When you are able to own your personal view, you do show up in that grace. And how funny that you have personal view, but Chiron and gate of opinions. Like, we just are so funny the way that we come into this world.
Yeah, that's kind of a cluster right there, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, Stars and Stripes. That was really good. Oh my God, you're genius with all of that stuff. That's awesome, Rebecca. Thank you for doing that.
Oh,
That was really
well, thank
good. That
you.
was really
Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this. I really hope it connects to some people to see this and to hear the stories. Y'all let us know what came up for you. We'd love to hear your connection to it. Pop a comment or just shoot us a DM or something. And thank you for being here. And thank you, Michelle, for letting us unpack this
Yeah,
on
thanks
this
for doing it in a
space.
safe environment. Yeah, exactly. It's all good. And if anybody's interested in working with Rebecca and I, we will have links provided for you. Or if you just want to look up abstractcuriosity.com, we're there. We're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube and podcasts. So
Yes.
wherever you're listening from this, we love to support people as they're going through this journey with tools and nurturing and understanding and compassion, because we really want you to grow into the absolute best version of alignment of yourself so that things do line up and manifest, and life can feel really amazing when we can understand that our Chiron is speaking through us, through the medicine, for us to grow and expand our consciousness.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
And
So well
and as
said.
our beautiful friend, she doesn't know us yet, but hopefully she will someday. But beautiful Cynthia Sue Larson, who I absolutely adore, says the comment of, "How good can it get?" And that's how we like to end our podcast. How good can it get? Allow yourself to do a little bit of healing this week if you discover more about yourself and Chiron. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, friends. Love you.